Welcome to the Thought Leaders video blog, where industry executives share their insights and vision in today's landscape of live entertainment.
Welcome to Thought Leaders. Pacquiao has started to sell tickets for college football, some rodeos, some races, even a drive through Jurassic Park in Philadelphia, but not a lot of indoor events so far. So hopefully that's going to change. Today we're going to talk to Elizabeth Gray from the Civic Center Foundation in Oklahoma City. So with that, let me welcome Elizabeth. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining our Thought Leader series.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.
So I was checking out your website. It is great that you are planning and going to be hosting events this fall with patrons in your theater. You are certainly one of our first performing arts facilities to open. So can you tell us about the steps it took to get there?
Yeah, you bet. I don't think it's any secret that Oklahoma is probably one of the lesser conservative states when it comes to the coronavirus protocols and local and state mandates. So it really seems like the rest of the state around us has opened up. And so we believe it's time to do the same for our Performing Arts Center, and with the community responsibility to do it in the safest manner possible. So it's really been 6 to 7 months in the making. A lot of in-depth discussions with our partners in the venue, our resident users of the venue, and in particular, this first organization that's holding a concert in less than 2 weeks, the Oklahoma City Philharmonic.
Wow, that's great. So what is the state mandate? And, we have Oklahoma football, but what is the state mandate right now? Because geographically, that's all over the board.
Yeah, there's not. So that's why I say we're one of the lesser conservative states when it comes to our protocols. So Oklahoma does not have a state mandate. We do have a city mandate from our tremendous mayor, Mayor David Holt, and so it is a citywide mask mandate. But that's currently the only enforced protocol. Just for the city.
Wow. So when looking at social distance seating in your theater, how did you determine the capacity yourself then? Yeah.
So interestingly enough, our Mayor David Holt, he put in some mandates early on in the quarantine shutdown, early in March, and then again, kind of through May and early June, that identified what socially distant meant for entertainment venues. And so although that's not in effect currently, we're still following that protocol, which is every third seat, every other row. So in particular for our venue, that gives you a little bit more than 6 feet from each person. So that's what we're going with. And our capacity of our main hall is a little over 2,400 seats. And so following that rule of thumb and generally taking into account, mostly parties of 2 and a few parties of 4 scattered throughout the theater, that drops our capacity to about 35%, just slightly over 700.
So with the first event happening in a couple of weeks with the Philharmonic, how are tickets selling right now for that show?
They actually have not gone on sale for single tickets. They're fortunate to have a really great subscriber base. And so what we're undertaking in Pacquiao and our whole team with Pacquiao has done a tremendous job in helping us really, truly blaze this trail, which is to set up, particular events to allow subscribers to exchange online into a new socially distant seating map. So whereas, the current seating map for subscribers, they're all bunched together and they've got the great seats in the orchestra level of our theater, we now have to spread them out. And, that's a really large undertaking for 1,000 to 1,200 patrons. So we've worked with our team at Pacquiao to set up the additional events. And the Philharmonic is adding a kind of a more intimate, really socially distant dress rehearsal. So we've set up events in Pacquiao to allow patrons to do that online to help with the box office staff. Both our box office staff and that of the Philharmonic because yeah, again, 1,000 to 1,200 patrons would be a lot of people to call and do that manually.
Yeah, well, and with so many folks involved, and interesting how selling tickets. What additional safety measures are you taking into consideration? Because I'm sure it's a lot.
We are throwing all of the spaghetti at the wall, so to speak. So we are, despite not having, despite the only local mandate being the mask enforcement, we are doing temperature checks at the front entrance, which is, a common thing that is even here in the absence of the mandates. So temperature checks, mask enforcement during the whole duration of their visit. We have obviously the socially distant theater. We've put the stickers all over the board, all over the floors and all over the building in our venue to make sure people maintain social distance while they're here visiting. We've made a lot of modifications to our food and beverage protocols. So we're not, because of the mask policy, we're only serving beverages in our venue, no food items, just to really help enforce that people need to pull down their mask, take a drink and put it back, versus eating a bag of chips or something where they're probably going to have their mask down for longer periods of time. So doing that, having all the plexiglass shields at all the points of service for food and beverage, credit card only transactions. All of our staff is going to be wearing masks and gloves, increased hand sanitizing stations throughout the venue. Really, you name it, we've implemented it. We're retrofitting our entire building to the MERV 13 air filters. We have a disinfectant dispersion system installed recently in each of our HVAC air handling units. So kind of similar to the concept of UV sanitization, this is a solution that gets sprayed in the air handlers to disinfect the air as it's moving through the building. We are our venue is, the air handlers are uniquely set up to take a large amount of outside air for the turnover, and we have a higher than average turnover rate in our theater. So our air exchange is anywhere from 6 to 9 times an hour, which is really great and well above the CDC recommendations. Let's see, what have I missed?
Wow.
I don't know that I've missed much. And we've, of course, retrofitted the building for the restrooms that weren't touchless. All restrooms are now touchless, both the toilets and faucets. Just really trying to minimize the contact of patrons with either parts of the building, other staff, other patrons, just doing absolutely everything we can, short of rapid testing, all of the patrons, doing what we can to make sure it's a safe environment.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot. So how are you communicating that with all of your patrons, but also, I'm sure there's a lot of optics and there's the media, and this is probably, a very interesting story within Oklahoma City. So how are you communicating all of that to the patrons? And then is there a media campaign as well to make sure that the general public knows how many precautions you're taking?
Yeah. Well, because Steve, the nature of just COVID in general in our world and in the various industries is that it changes day by day. So really we're holding off on that for right now, but in the next probably 7 to 10 days, we're going to really undertake a good patron education program to make sure that everybody that's attending this specific concert knows exactly what to expect when they arrive and are prepared, frankly. And as well, one thing I didn't mention is that we're going 100% mobile ticket delivery. So again, minimizing the outside, a patron bringing in a piece of paper from the outside that perhaps one of our staff members or another patron could potentially touch. So in addition to the health and safety protocols, implementing a good digital communication campaign for our mobile ticketing education.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously we're big fans of going all mobile. Yeah. So there's a lot of additional benefits to that as well.
Yeah.
So checking out the website again, you currently have OKC Broadway scheduled to come back in January. How are you feeling about touring events right now?
Yeah, some of the smaller, what I call kind of special events, are toying with the idea of coming back sooner rather than later. Again, that's another thing that's really day by day. It literally changes every single day. So not feeling great about January, but hopeful still. But in reality, I think a spring or early summer return is probably what's in the books, just given the magnitude of what national tours have to undertake themselves and the coordination with the local cities, presenting cities, to really make all of their routing work and to ensure the health and safety of their actors and performers, as well as that of the venue and the patrons. It's a giant undertaking. So hopeful for late spring, early summer. But again, I think we'll have that confirmation here in the next couple months as to what the final schedule looks like.
Yeah, no, I hope so. And I'm sure there's other municipalities that are jealous of the openness that Oklahoma and the city of Oklahoma City has allowed so far. But yes, geographically, in order to do a tour, you need everybody on board. So unfortunately for touring events, even though I think Frozen is trying to be aggressive out there and be one of the first. So I know there's the will. It's just there's a lot of pieces that have to fall in place. So with all these changes, and I'm sure you've done a lot of juggling, moving events around, moving series around, how have your subscribers responded to all of these changes?
Surprisingly well. I think, on a national basis, season subscribers, rather than for the most part being skittish or, requesting refunds, most of the people really just want to come back to live entertainment. It's, you don't know how much you miss something until it's gone. And so the overwhelming feedback from our subscribers is we just want to come back to the shows. And of course, they want to do it in a safe manner for all. So I think patience has been a tremendous virtue that really everybody around the table has held over these past several months. And but overwhelmingly positive. It's the uncertainty, the lack of up to date and just constant information is hard, but we're seeing that across the board. It's hard to give updates when we ourselves don't have confirmed information either. And again, like I mentioned, it's changing day by day. So we don't want to give somebody a prospective date for a rescheduled event, only to know that it could change 2 to 3 weeks down the road. So really trying to hold off to minimize patron confusion and to really solidify our season and give them that information when it's finalized.
Yeah, and with so many events moving back, is it still going to be 2 separate seasons? Because I know everyone's planning for next season. So are they kind of all combined? Still 2 separate seasons? Does it overlap? How does that all?
I think that's really going to get fleshed out when we get our dates confirmed. They're really early on in the quarantine shutdown period. It was discussed that we may revert back to calendar seasons, whereas national tours and Broadway presenting cities around the country have kind of worked on a school year calendar for the most part. So I think that'll be an interesting twist to go to calendar years versus school year. And but I think we'll see. I think, each market is going to have to get creative. I know we certainly are. We're already trying to think of all the potential possibilities once we get finalized dates. But everybody's going to have to get creative and really do what's best for them. Some may make a school year calendar work still. Some may switch to calendar year. But it's definitely going to be a mix mash of shows. It's very seldomly, I think it's going to look like the season that people renewed for back in January, February. I think it will look different. It may have some new titles. But I think overall really exciting and the quality is, of course, still going to be there.
Yep. And as you said, and that's the hope, but we're seeing it as well. People are just really, really looking forward to come back.
Yeah.
So with all these subscribers and all these patrons and, you're communicating with them a lot on all these juggling of shows, Have you done anything unique to continue to engage with them during this time that the venue's been dark?
Yeah, I don't, again, with everybody across the country getting so creative and staying in contact, I don't know that anything we've done is particularly unique, but some of the things that we've done is really combing what digital content shows are putting out there, especially the national tours. You can see that Hamilton was published on Disney Plus, just keeping up to date with those sort of happenings. We reverted back to kind of a weekly, bi-weekly newsletter, which, was kind of going by the wayside because you don't want to bore people with just content that they don't necessarily want or need. But especially when people are stuck at home, putting that content that they may not know about in front of them again, I think has been helpful for the subscribers just to stay in touch and plugged into some form of performing arts while they're sitting at home on their couch or, working from home or homeschooling their children, whatever it may be. So keeping them up to date on that content, scouring the internet for other creative content that we know is out there. And then really from a venue standpoint, giving them more behind the scenes looks at the venue operations, drone tours, just behind the scenes, backstage workings. Our technical staff has gotten really creative in, taping their phone to our fly system and moving it up and down, giving a patron a behind the scenes look at what it's like to go all the way up to the rafters and back down to the stage. Cool stuff like that we never had the time for, nor, the empty stage for to do in the past. So it's been neat to see our entire staff really pitch in and figure out ways to keep patrons interested and engaged.
That's fantastic. It is all about engagement, and there are, you're right, a lot of creative ideas out there. Thanks for allowing us to keep people engaged by participating in this Thought Leader session. We really appreciate it, Elizabeth. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for joining the Thought Leaders video blog. And remember, everyone can step up and be a leader in their own way. We look forward to seeing you next time.